Welcome everybody to this webinar, kindly sponsored and organized by Assetti. Assetti is an asset data management platform for real assets out of Finland. It is one of the most powerful solutions for asset management for data aggregation in the industry. Today we have with us few founders of technology solutions that are really revolutionary in a sense that we are bringing some of the data sets together and opening up some of the data layers that were not so easily available earlier. And by applying today's technology, we can get a better understanding of data sets behind real estate, behind real assets. Today, our topic is the practical approach to ESG and what it means for the real estate industry. ESG is a very big topic nowadays. There's a lot of publications, a lot of talk, a lot of discussions about it. And yet, when you try to take a practical approach and try to understand what it really is and how to apply it in your daily business, it's not so evident. So our point of departure for today's discussion will be to approach ESG as a means to benchmark performance of real estate from the standpoint of different data sets that surround buildings, surround real estate business. And we have location-based data, we have demographics, we have CT data, we got comparables, market indicators, but in the core, we do have the customer, the person who walks in a building with a certain purpose in mind, with a certain expectation of the experience that they plan to get inside the building. And we are going to talk about all these aspects today. So first, I want to ask the question to Daniel. Daniel's a co-founder of the Norwegian company Again, which is focused on ESG benchmarking for buildings. So Daniel, could you please elaborate on what ESG means, what kind of practice you have in Norway, and what kind of solution your company is offering to the market?
Hello, everyone. We're probably the youngest company in the panel today. We are a startup that has been established just this year as a result of Antler venture capital program. And what we are doing, actually, we are providing sustainability KPIs for investment and maintenance in existing real estate assets by using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So our approach is a little bit different from the traditional approach in real estate, namely that instead of focusing on the primary data, we are getting to the secondary and tertiary data and aggregate it to get these KPIs. We build probability models of the entire building stock. Why we're doing this is that there are several factors. We don't have time to talk about them today, but among them is that we have to turn our economy towards a more circular one and less resource intensive. That means that we have to think on a bigger scale. What we do, let's see if the mouse works on my computer. Here is the team. We believe in cross-disciplinary approach, and that is what we have built the team around that. But what we are doing actually, as per today, the building valuation is connected mainly to the financial KPIs, location, market value, and so on and so on. But not enough on the content and the building materials in the building themselves. And we are building our algorithms to create this aggregated probability model that will show the value, the residual value in the building and extend its life. We are building, as we call it, the Again black box, where we gather this data, we build typologies, with the help of our algorithms, we show the clients, we point the clients where is the biggest potential and where is the biggest risk in managing their buildings. We are a SAS platform, software as a service. So of course, the focus is on the clients. Everything should be, we have run hundreds of interviews, and there are so many tools in the market that one of the biggest barriers is actually how we can manage to have the clients to not to change every time the tool. So everything should be integrated into their existing platform. So we are working on the user experience quite a lot. But briefly, that is the previous MVP. We're building our platform around 6 modules, which is the carbon footprint, embedded carbon footprint in the buildings, the energy, the toxic materials, which we have identified as one of the biggest barriers, the materials content, and the prediction models for the materials, and the flexibility, which we have identified also as a big barrier. And what it has been named here, benchmarking is an important part of it, because we have to benchmark it against the best buildings, the similar buildings, and to really evaluate what will be the value in the context. We have to look at the scale of the data. But what we're focusing in our models is that we have these 3 scenarios where you keep the building, you demolish, and you build the new one, or you refurbish it. And our intention is to move towards a value where you appreciate more what exists instead of building a new one that is going to fulfill new requirements. Because from the resource point of view, and carbon footprint is not quite the best solution. And energy-wise, we're looking also into aggregated data, and we're trying to identify patterns in maintenance that actually point that, I don't know if the screen is, the image is good enough, but you have buildings from the 70s that are functioning energy-wise much better than buildings built in 2010. And we're looking at several layers of data to find out why. For the moment, we are in dialogue with several big companies, and we have built partnerships with SINTEF, the biggest research institute in Norway, and with Statsbygg, the biggest state-owned building company and asset management in Norway. And they are looking into understanding better their portfolio by building these KPIs that are giving them a more aggregated image of their portfolio. And I think that is in the way what we have to move towards as a society, that sharing is adding value to your own data. So most probably the other panel attendees, they will talk about the same, the value of sharing the data.
Absolutely. Daniel, can I ask you a question? When so your product is basically the benchmark. It's the performance indicator, right? On a certain scale. How dependent are you on third-party data, and how do you estimate the availability of that data outside of Norway? Because if you build something as scalable as an algorithm that you're demonstrating, I'm assuming that it requires a lot of input. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
We are doing this in the replicating the human brain approach, where you, in the learning phase, you accumulate a lot of data, and after that data that you store in your synapses or in your neurons that are generating synapses are going to make you able to understand new situations. So that is why we start in Norway and Scandinavia, and because it's much more digitalized. The building industry is much more digitalized, the content is much more available. And our plan is to go together with Norwegian companies in European markets. But after our algorithms understand the building's typologies and the building's elements and the criteria to identify and to build the risk assessment model, is going to be much easier to expand to new markets. But of course, the probability and the risk assessment is not going to have the same outputs in the first period when we get to a new market, because we have to learn. And every country has its own specifics. regarding data and storage and labeling and so on. So it is a process that our approach is to get together to big players that have a big portfolio. They are looking into it and to understand it better, because that helps our algorithms to get much more specific.
Understood. So basically, data gathering and data exchange becomes the first and foremost task for everybody. I guess probably the most relevant solution presented on in the discussion today that deals directly with data aggregation, data exchange, and data interpretation is Data Talks. Yeah, it's a name that talks for itself. So Philip is with us today. We are gonna ask you, what do you know about the customer? Like what can we find out about the person who visits a shopping center or a stadium or any other building?
Thanks for the introduction. That's a very good question, and I'm probably the one of the panels who will talk most about. Well, everybody's talking about data, of course, but we are talking mainly about the customer data. Then, and we're talking about looking at the individuals. So we are also, of course, a SaaS company. As many companies, we have a customer data platform. I need to brag a little bit. We're the first Nordic company who's certified the customer data platform since a few weeks back, and which we're very happy about. We're based in Stockholm, and what we do is we help companies to create an outstanding customer experience. And just to look a little bit on our verticals, we're talking to sports companies, we're talking to retail, e-commerce, we're talking to utility, banking, and here you see some of our customers in the sports vertical, some retail, some bank and finance, and a few other customers like in the travel industry. And why we're doing this is today many companies compete not on the basis of price and product, but actually 89% of companies compete on the basis of generating a great customer experience. So, and this is actually because the power has shifted today. Customers call the shots, and companies like Spotify, Starbucks, Facebook, and what have you, cool startups from the US, they have taught the audience today that the customer is in the focus, and you need to know me as a customer in order to be relevant. Otherwise, it's not interesting. And there's so many different channels that you need to be working in, and there's a lot of data generated here. So, and according to some surveys we've done, 86% of customers will actually pay more in order to get a better customer experience. However, only 1% of consumers feel that the expectations for a good customer experience are actually met. So there's a huge gap there where we see that data can help you generate this great customer experience. And what we've done is we help you create this great customer experience by collecting data, getting the insights, and then actually acting on the data. And we're focused then on the customer. So this is customer data. And today, customers have so many different touch points. I was actually going into my son's room the other day. He's 15 years old. And when I opened his door, the TV was on, of course. The laptop was on his bed, and he was looking on his mobile phone, and he had his huge headphones on for gaming. And I tried to get through to him, and then he took his headphones off. He actually had his AirPods in his ears. So I'm trying to compete with him with 5 other channels here. And that's the way it looks today. Our customers are interacting with us through so many different channels. And each channel is generating, of course, a lot of data. So how can you then generate relevant customer experience? Well, by putting the customer in the middle and connecting all these data from the various sources. And we do this, of course, and as I said before, we collect the data, we visualize the data in the dashboards, and then you can start acting on this. And before we go to the acting part, before you act, you need, of course, to know what kind of customer you're talking to. And here we start building customer profiles based on all this data. And the more you know about your customers, the more relevant you can then go and be in your communication, in your acting, throughout the whole customer journey, whatever it is you want your customer to do. So the secret to creating a relevant customer experience then is, of course, to offer the right product to the right customer in the right channel at the right time. And of course, again, this can only be done if you have a great view, a 360-degree view of your customer. So what are they interested in? So don't offer, let's say, cleaning equipment to this customer because they've been looking at the bicycle. And this is data that especially the younger generation are willing to share with you in exchange for a better customer experience. So be relevant. And why do we do this? Well, of course, happy customers are not only the foundation of a loyal customer base, but of course also they are the customer that will buy more, they will recommend you to others, they'll be less price sensitive, and they will follow your advice. And speaking to the audience today, I mean, here is that being relevant gets your customers to come back. And I mean, I think that's also very important for the industry that you're talking to, especially in the retail and we see that the e-commerce is growing a lot, but we don't see that. We don't think that there will be a huge, let's say, the customer will still move between the different channels here. So that's important to know which customer is there. The other benefits of being data-driven is, of course, that you can generate the leads, you can engage loyal customers, you can make smarter and better decisions when it comes to what to offer your customers, when to offer it, how to offer it, and so on. And this will lead to increased conversions. Also, one thing that we're seeing many companies are struggling today is the workload with the data. So if you by having a process and a system in place, you will have less manual work and time-consuming work, and you can just do more with less resources. So again, this I'll hand off with this picture. What it's all about to collect the data and create a great, relevant customer experience by offering the right product to the right customer in the right channel at the right time.
So, Philip, would I be correct to say that this is a short description of what a CDP is, right? So, customer data platform, right?
Exactly. Or this is, I would rather say this is the result if you work with a CDP. But to make it, to go back to what a CDP is, it's about collecting the data, analyzing the data, visualizing it, and getting the right insights, and then acting on it. And the good thing with CDP is that you can do all of this within one system. So you don't need to export data and work with the data in different systems. We call it Excel hell. So it's all integrated in one system.
So I think it's a great example. I mean, we had to take a deeper look into what a CDP is because in real estate, I'm not so sure after talking to a bunch of professionals that CDP has been the acronym that has been, that the industry has been very familiar with. So it's been more talked about by retailers, by FMCG professionals, but I think we are in this shifting mindset stage when property owners and real estate managers actually have to measure, not simply how many people walk in and walk out, but also measure like you correctly put it, the attention, right? So attention becomes the actual currency that the real estate owner and the tenants exchange. So I guess it is one of the ways to start to approach ESG benchmarking. So let's say the S part of ESG, the social part of ESG, is with the customer profile, because everybody is a customer more or less. And in the end of the day, if it's a shopping center, then the shopping center owner and the asset manager is not simply selling or leasing out square meters to its tenants, but the asset manager is actually offering the audience or the relevant audience of the shopping center visitors to its tenants. And the way that you measure the feedback and you measure the loyalty and engagement of the customers is the way to also get relevant KPIs and estimate and benchmark something that can be called social impact, right, of your business model, of your approach, and your values in the end of the day.
Exactly. It's all about putting the customer in the middle and identifying the customer. Who is this customer? What do they like? And if I go to a shopping mall, there's out of 25 different retailers, 3 of them would be very interesting for me. How could the offer for me as Philip be to make me more willing to go to this shopping mall, because then I can go to these 3 retailers. And as the previous speaker said also, sharing data is of course of great interest, Of course, there's a GDP perspective on this, and there's a commercial aspect of this. Do I want them to share this data with my competitors? Probably not. But I think that having a more holistic view on data and collecting the data and putting the customer in the focus will generate better customer experience for sure.
All right, thanks for your input. I think it's been very eye-opening for a few of our listeners, hopefully. And I think now when we talk about CDP from now on, we will understand better what it means. So I could say that we have spoken about the E with Daniel, about the structure of the building, the carbon footprint, the energy balance. We have talked about the social element with you, Philip, about how to engage with customers and how to see the preferences and the profile behind a data set. But when we talk about the social impact on a larger scale, we need to turn to socio-demographics and maybe some macroeconomic figures that used to be something that we analyzed only in retrospect, based on some statistics. But now we have a way to gather this information, to analyze this information, make predictive models or aggregated data sets. So my question goes over to Dirk. Let's talk about what kind of demographic data, what kind of macroeconomic data does your solution aggregate, and how valuable it can be and how applicable it can be to measure the ESG score for real estate.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. At Algoly, we are, just a little introduction, at Algoly, we are a marketplace for data, and we are unifying different data sources and different data brokers into one single data stream, so you can come in and select the individual data attributes you would be interested in. And then we have the technology in place that you only have to use one data API to get all the data you want. And what you just mentioned, Ivan, is that the difficulty is the access to the data, or has been the access of the data, especially if you go across geographies. So if you're looking into demographic information, comparing Belgium with the west of Germany, which might be close together, but there was a hard comparability to this type of data sets. With us, you can go in and say, I want to have the number of population, the income statement, income level or net wealth worth of the people, and the educational level of those people in a certain zip code. And you can get that for east of Belgium and then west of Germany, and you can compare it to one another, which definitely helps you to understand if the social impact of that region is, in one way or another, better or worse, or whatever your criteria are to look into it. We are in itself a more development layer, where real estate developer or startup come in and they use us to build better products and to make it cross-functional, cross geographies, but also only have to deal with one source instead of 15 different sources, which might not be comparable, which might not be clean, which might not be even the same data, even though they mention the name of the data attribute is the same, but it's really not if you look under the hood.
So if we talk about data exchange, what comes as a first problem to solve is the granularity of data, or the single individual item for which the data is relating to, right? And when we are talking about real estate assets, we normally mean a building or a group of buildings, or even sometimes built-in premises on the first floor of a high street retail. So we have to be very specific about how to attribute the data that we collect and exchange. And we have with us on the panel today Achim from Dresden Sommer, and Dresden Sommer has been focused on building its own. I think nowadays everybody's building their own ecosystem and infrastructure and platform and so on. So Achim, would you please share your view on how all these different data aspects that can shape into a versatile key performance indicator to benchmark ESG performance of real estate. How does it come together in a model that can be attributed to a real estate asset? And how do you even identify a real estate asset? Let's start with that maybe.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, no, I think you really hit the right spot there. I mean, seeing all these great solutions in this talk and like all around, so you see a lot of things is around data, and as you said, everybody's building a data platform and try to capture it. Some because they just have to want to get hold of it, some because they love it, they want to really get like solve some problems there. And I think the view I can bring into this talk is like the corporate view a bit, like, because obviously like having the choice of dealing with so many different companies who offer solutions, like the challenges is to so first to pick the right one, then to kind of integrate in one, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe you want to change, but then you're locked in there as a corporate, and you kind of big fear of like larger organizations in my experience is like to jump on the wrong horse or like in the wrong solution and then have to change again. And I think from a data point of view, I think there needs to be some integration. We discussed like sharing data already. I think this is a very important topic. And I always have the feeling that all of us more or less solve the same problem. All the startups solve the same problem for themselves because they want to create like this platform, this unique USP, like this kind of solution that they can sell, which is obviously which is the main reason. But instead of kind of only look into creating own data standards, it would be much better to focus on creating that solution for the customer. I like to be this customer centric. And I think there we really miss some kind of data integration layer. So we're working with an organization like with Fibre and on a topic like called unique object identifier, which tries to solve that by creating a unique identity that is linked to any part of the building. And so whenever there's any data being created for that specific part of the building, you kind of hand over the unique identity of that item. And so in whatever platform you save that information, you kind of can trace it back to that specific location, to that specific part. And well, obviously this is only like in a very early stage, and I think I know there are a couple of other kind of approaches currently trying to solve that issue. But I think this is something which I see as a big challenge and an opportunity for the industry to create something like that, like a common data standard or exchange level, where we all then can build our solutions on. And so then we coming back to the customer-centric point of view, it would be great for a customer to be able to choose on whatever solution is best for him or her, and not being locked in one kind of SaaS platform or like just fearing like the pain of changing. And of course, especially if you work with a lot of smaller companies who are not that old, like we heard like from this year already. Obviously, I mean, we wish you all the great future, but like from a corporate point of view, this is kind of a killer aspect. So you just fear that, and so you end up with one of the large fours in the space because you know they will have support for 20 years, and but that cannot be the solution. So we need to kind of create some kind of basic layer that is enabling everybody of us to actually either build the solution or like to provide data or like to still control my data and be able to do actually what I'm kind of my core business. For many people, data is not yet the core business. I think obviously it's changing to that. But talking about real estate, obviously we're not talking about the data-driven business per se yet. It's only starting there. So I think this is a big challenge, you know.
I could argue that not necessarily if you're big, then you can offer a solution that'll last for 20 years. I think now is the age when, as we say, smart rules over powerful. So hopefully actually getting the abundance of smaller companies will solve the issue. I guess we have heard today from everybody who spoke out already that data exchange and data, I would say, common data approach is becoming the essential part, because when we look at the market, we see that a lot of big companies and a lot of portfolio managers are trying to come up with their own branded label or their own branded solution to ESG, and say, okay, we offer this ESG benchmarking to our investors, and everybody's trying to sort of make a proprietary label out of that. So how do we start this approach to creating a common data exchange? I mean, we know that there are tens of different standards, ISO 19650, for instance, and COBE, and we know some of the American initiatives. Could you, Achim, maybe a little bit describe what is going on in that landscape in Europe right now?
Okay, so I thought that my part is over, so I was not really focusing.
Well, we spoke earlier with some market participants about CREDA in the United States. So it's the commercial real estate data alliance. So there's an initiative called eCREDA, so European Commercial Real Estate Data Alliance. So can you briefly talk about that, and maybe some of the highlights on the European ground? What would be the practical way to find data sets and to aggregate them? Like, where would you go?
Yeah, actually, like this organization I also represent, Fibri, they're talking with eCREDA, so we're having projects with them and developing like exactly that approach, and working on common solution. And obviously, that I think, like, to us, what we need there, obviously, we need the industry players being active there. I think this is something that needs to be formed by the industry. And when I say industry, I mean like the large, or like the incumbent players who have been around for a while, and just like represent more like the old part of the economy in real estate. And I think like companies like we have here in this round, I think they're really far ahead, like really like already they're pushing boundaries, they're creating new economies. So, but we need to involve like the incumbents to actually kind of understand that their business becomes more data driven, and in order to actually make that work for them, especially for them as a business model in future, you need to have some kind of data exchange, data as part of your DNA, and that in this kind of discussions we have with other organizations, it's always for me quite important to involve in industry players to follow us, so that you don't run away, that you take them from where they are currently, and understand where their pay points are today, and well, I always like to love to actually paint this vision where we can end up, or where we want to heading to. But in most of the cases, you too far. I'm too far away with that if I pitch that to anyone. So you need to actually get them on the table and agree with them where the needs are, and where they can actually build a future business model on top of that.
We are when we talk about the corporate approach, I always see it as a top-down approach. Somebody sitting around a big table trying to vote, whether that is a good potential candidate for a KPI or not, and I think that it's not really working in reality, because everybody is seeing rather the competitive edge, and I think all of this kind of assembly way is not really working. So what we have, we are trying to actually engage our listeners into with this discussion is how we can build the bottom-up structure that will be able to kind of to crack this concrete of the big corporations. And Hanno is probably the right person to talk about KPIs and business intelligence when it comes to aggregation of performance indicators on portfolio level, because what Assetti is doing is actually giving you the overview of real estate performance in your portfolio. So what would happen, Hannu, I will be very practical in this question, what would happen if, for example, we brought Daniel's solution to Assetti and said, okay, now we have this Norwegian startup that can calculate on a scale from 0 to 1, a certain benchmark. Can you display it inside Assetti for the portfolio of Norwegian assets? And can we enrich, for example, the data set with some of the social demographic data that Dirk is providing with their solution? And can we plug in maybe some customer data from CDP, from Data Talks, and can we aggregate it all in Assetti? I mean, is technology ready for this kind of task? I mean, is it possible to make an MVP of such sort?
Hello, Hannu from Assetti. It's a real estate management platform web app, SaaS offering, pure play in that sense. I would say technically yes, that is no problem at all. Just a bit of put a bit of a background to the discussion that what we created our own product 7 years ago, or MVP 6 years ago, and we were the first ones to offer actually API. Okay, API is not a solution per se, but more like a technological, just means among others to exchange data. But nevertheless, and that happened 4 years ago. And when we went to the industry, we were totally alone. Like API, what do you do with that? Because no one is listening. So, and now all of a sudden it's APIs everywhere. Everybody's building their platforms. So technically yes, but I think it is always these kind of webinars almost boil down to one issue, and that is data, and whether that's basic real estate data regarding what was referred earlier, like the financial view, tenant view, rentals, all of that stuff. It builds from the ground up. Whether how do you identify your asset, which Akim is actually working on. So what is your unique asset identifier? What are you talking about in general? And once you've done it, you still have a threshold of of the data, not to mention even the S and G. So how do you measure actually social and governance of a real estate? And it's a really interesting question, but it's not about the capturing the data. It's also to some extent validating the data and then really presenting it and then making the right conclusions out of that. So I think the reality is for most of the issues still there's a investor A meeting investor B, and they want to exchange something. Basically, investor A is saying that I have my own model. Okay, then the investor B says that, hey, I have my own model, and then they start, comparing and find, okay, the devil is in the details. We do have kind of the same data, but actually it's a bit of a different, and that actually waters down the whole effort. So saying that flexibility is definitely one which is needed, whether you like it or not, kind of a configurability of your applications, then sort of a technical enabling, which is API basically. But I see that there's a really evolution of what I call data layer, meaning like the data streaming, whatever you want to call it. In each of the countries we were active, and maybe someday we will have a assembly of those, or a European integrated born out of somewhere, but that's something. And then the fourth thing is really every customer, what I notice, I ask for their data governance. What you've been planning to govern your data, which application does what, and how you're going to aggregate the data, validate, capture, validate, and then stream, and then of course to have a policy on that, because what I see in the real estate, not just for the ESG data, is pretty much the analogy from the fintech. There's so many fintech companies out there, but most of them are relying on the APIs of the incumbents, the banks opening up their basic transactional data. So what I think very, very crucial is for the real estate investors and owners, somehow, whatever the solution is, open up their data with the help of the APIs in a way that there are room for innovation, and for smaller companies also to participate and drive the innovation in that sense. And then the natural market will take care. Some will breed, some will flourish, some will be merged, some will die, but that's in each and every domain will happen anyway. Been happening. So that's my 2 cents to this. Technically, yes, I mean, give us the data and we'll just
what I've noticed recently is,
but I do see that there's also what we're also building is sort of like metadata on the metadata. So if you have like data field A in system 1 and data field B in system 2, we need to store what these systems are meaning with that data in order to just map those. So there's like also meta layer of a meta layer in order to make it happen.
I think that the technical side of things, of course, is a bit more complicated than just connecting something over an API. I mean, of course, like you correctly put it, the devil's in the details. And it's probably important to note that during today's discussions, we're not even touching the IoT side of things, sensors and so on. We wanted to have guys from Measurable during this discussion, but we decided maybe it would be an overkill, and perhaps we set up another session to talk about the sensors and kind of smart buildings and that topic. But I think that what we all noticed recently is that the discussion generally in the industry has shifted, especially since the beginning of pandemic, has shifted from the ownership of data and real estate incumbents being really protective of their data into kind of the discussion of how can we use the data, what is the right format and so on. And it looks like, without explicitly saying it, real estate incumbents are understanding that there is no more. So it shouldn't be the excuse. It shouldn't be the obstacle. Meaning data ownership and data sharing, and it's just a question of how to format it in a correct way. I think that I agree with you, Hannu, that it is essential for real estate owners and asset managers and investors. It's essential for them to open their data sets and let small companies or startup companies play with it and try to find a good use for that data. And I think that the real practical side of ESG benchmarking should be born out of the practical usage of these data sets, and exactly from the visualization of data sets using asset management platforms and business intelligence and interpretation layers, and then just getting the best practices converged into standards or into de facto standards. Maybe
Ivan, may I make just one comment, just adding more to that? Also, I mean, I tend to see more opportunities than kind of like threats and thresholds, so to speak. But of course, one of the issues regarding the whole issue is also that at least in the investment phase of any real estate, there's a tendency to avoid black boxes. So typically, analysts try to get really into deep down in the data, and if we present them a black box, they typically want to understand how the black box works, how does it construct it, what does the algorithm say, and that's also big cultural shift, which will take still years to be sort of I would say common sense or mainstream.
Or maybe not. I don't know. I mean, nowadays the time accelerates, at an unprecedented pace.
Well, you never know. I mean, as I said, there are more opportunities than sort of like just the delays. So just saying out loud that time will tell.
I guess it's been very experimental today to try to bring all these different data layers together. I hope that we have been it has been insightful. Let's maybe do another round of summaries. What we can try to indicate as potential next steps. Where do we see the industry going, and what would be each one of us intention and wish, like what would be really practical for our companies to take a step forward to really practical ESG benchmarking using these data sets that we are aggregating. So perhaps let's have a small summary input from each one. Philip, can you please start?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention also when I'm listening to this, it's of course not a discussion about the technology, because the technology is there. We can connect data from, I mean, we get the question sometimes, which kind of data can you connect? Well, whatever data you have. I think the focus should be more on, and this is what we've seen in working with the commercial and marketing and technology in the MarTech senses. Once we get the why, what is the sense? Why do you want to connect this data? What's the value? There's a huge value in the data. But once we understand this, then connecting it, of course, it's a work, and we build our customer data platform around this, and we can do this, and connecting with APIs and so on. But the most important thing is the value. What's the value? What's the commercial case? And then we can put see why we should invest. And then if it's going to be 100,000 or 200,000 euros, doesn't really matter if you compare it to the potential value in the data. So I would say it's not a technical discussion anymore, because we can do this. It's more of a commercial discussion. Why do you want to do it? And then you just set up and do it.
Perfect. Daniel, what do you have to add?
I have 3 comments. We should not forget that we're talking about the building industry, and in buildings you have huge delays, and also the consequences of what you measure as an output comes from 20 years back. And that is something that we have found out that actually cannot be solved just with IoTs, but it's something that you have to look more holistically into it. And what we have experienced with our clients is that for the moment, you have the market valuation, which is generated by shared data, because all the building owners, they are sharing some of their data, and like this, you have an approach that the market generates a valuation. And that is something that we're trying to convince our clients, that actually giving us some of their data, which is about details, maintenance, and so on, we can give them threefold the value of the data. So it's something that is happening. It takes a while, it's a mentality approach, but the market valuation is the easiest example. And I will add 2 more things. One of the biggest challenges that we have identified in using data is cleaning the data. We have a tendency to simplify the data, to label it in a simplified approach, but actually the devil is in details, and all the patterns that actually are generating fluctuation in the model are coming from the details outside the main labeling. And now we are working to see how we can integrate that and read these patterns from the errors in the system, because on the long term in the buildings, again, we're talking about cycles of 25, 30, 60 years cycles, which is a little bit different than buying a product that you can buy it now. So that is something that we find a big challenge to solve. And the third one, we should not forget that we're talking about the ESG, which aim to a sustainable world. So we have to look into how we can convince our clients to prioritize quality to price now, because quality means price on the long term saved. And that is something that we try to put in Gainax in the core value, and to generate these ESGs as part of our DNA. And this, so I think that the future is bright. It's going to be extremely interesting, and the data approach to data is going to change dramatically in the next years.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very, very good point about the pace at which buildings are changing. As Stuart Brand said in his 1994 book, How Buildings Learn After They Are Built, he said that every building is a prediction and every prediction is wrong, because by designing a building, the architects think about how it's going to be used, but the fashion and the commercial side of things is changing a lot faster than the building industry. So absolutely correct. Thanks for that input. Dirk, being mindful of the time, do you have a few words to add?
Yeah, I would contradict what Dan said, that high price doesn't always mean high quality, unfortunately, in this market. But I would second what Philip said, that we have to make sure that the accessible of the data is priced well. And I think what the trend will be, that we have on-demand, very granular data, so that you can get a certain data attribute for a certain street instead of buying the whole country, which typically is currently the way to go with the big incumbents. And I think there will be a big business trend in there.
Very good point. Thank you, Achim. What would you call the main takeaway from today's discussion?
Yeah, well, I think I mean, the future is bright. I think there are loads of very good points here, and I like to maybe follow up on what Daniel said. Yeah, the real estate industry is a very physical industry, and we're talking about data here. I think what we need, the industry needs to understand that there is a business model behind data. Obviously, I mean, we all know that there's a business model, but I think deep down in the industry, it's not really there yet, because that's not the way how things used to work. So I think this is the big step. We need to kind of help them, and I think in many cases we're not yet so convincing. So that needs to be worked on. And I think what you said earlier, Ivan, about like this top-down approach in corporations in the real estate industry, I think this will kind of change or start to change when we see the first kind of IT people or like data people being in the top level of real estate companies. We've seen it in other industries, how it worked, and I think this needs to happen in the real estate industry as well, in order to kind of make way for these changes.
Agree, and thanks for this input. I would say that ESG, even though we try to talk about the practical approach, I think ESG is still a goal and kind of the prize down the road. And I guess the bottom line is that we'll need to, first of all, find a good way to aggregate, exchange data, and we need a platform to collect it all together. So would you agree, Hannu? And maybe a final input
Yes,
from your side as well.
If I make like my 60 seconds of fame, I wish there were someday a common data model used by everyone for the real estate data, including ESG. However, knowing that most likely it's like shooting a moving target, because the business case regarding physical assets called real estate changes. COVID has already made a huge impact. It might be just shooting a moving target. So it's more like a wish and a direction to go for. And when we go towards that, processes improve, applications improve, date changes improve. So going for that direction, I wish you best of luck, and we need to most of the time give the flexibility, and we are willing to work any data set in any customer case you have. So in the meantime, while we're approaching that vision.
I think it's been a very interesting discussion. I already quoted Stuart Brand today, but maybe I add another thing. He once said that the next big thing will be a lot of small things. So I think it's exactly the case in our industry. And I really thank you all for joining the discussion today. It's been very insightful, a very crazy mix of products and data sets, but I think that one thing that we should all keep in mind going forward is that we do it all for the people, for ourselves, and for the brighter future of our children, and yeah, the whole planet, world peace. Yeah. So I guess that's the true meaning of ESG, is how to build a sustainable future for everyone. So so it is a big goal. I think we all got a good practical peek into what is possible with technology today. Like Philip already said, the technology is the answer, so we need to just ask the right question. So thanks again, everybody, to who joined today, and hopefully we will see you again in the next session. Have a great day, and talk to you later.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Bye-bye.